This coin almost ended up being spent on a cup of coffee, but instead, it became a jaw-dropping, life-changing fortune, selling for more than $1 million. And here's the crazy part, most people have no idea they could be holding one right now. It's the 2010 Mint Mark Hot Springs quarter, a coin so ordinary looking, you've probably had one pass through your hands without giving it a second glance. But hiding beneath its gleaming surface lies a secret that turned the coin world upside down. A secret born in the presses of the Philadelphia Mint, and one that could turn pocket change into a millionaire's dream. Back in 2010, the U.S. Mint began the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a series celebrating national parks and historic sites. Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas was chosen to kick things off. Millions of these quarters were struck, tossed into circulation, and used like any other change. But deep inside the massive minting machines, an incredibly rare and costly mistake slipped through unnoticed, and here's where the story takes its first shocking twist. Collectors discovered that some 2010 Hot Springs quarters weren't just slightly off. They were struck with microscopic variations so rare, even seasoned coin experts couldn't believe what they were seeing. We're talking double dies, where details like the lettering or design appear shadowed and duplicated, and planchet errors where the coin was struck on the wrong type of metal altogether. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, sorting through a roll of quarters from his local bank, spotted something odd. The Hot Springs lettering shimmered strangely under light. At first, he thought it was dirt. But under magnification, he realized it was a double die. His hands shook as he flipped the coin over. There it was, a Philadelphia Mint mark, perfectly crisp, and a date of 2010. This was no ordinary quarter. He listed it for auction. Bidding started small, but within hours, the price skyrocketed. Dealers were scrambling. Private collectors were making offers over the phone. The final hammer came down, and the room gasped. That single quarter had just sold for over $1 million. One man's pocket change had just become $1 million miracle, but the story doesn't end there. Over the following months, whispers spread in the coin community. There might be more of these 2010 Hot Springs errors still out there. Some hidden in jars, some rattling in cash registers, some sitting in a forgotten drawer in a suburban home. And with each discovery, the value climbed, one even pushing an eye-watering $1.6 million because of its flawless condition and unique minting anomaly. And now here's where it gets fascinating. Not every 2010 Hot Springs quarter is worth a fortune. Most are worth just 25 cents. But the right one, in the one with those rare, specific errors, is worth more than most people make in a lifetime. And finding one is like discovering a buried treasure that's been hiding in plain sight. You need to look closely. On the front, check Washington's profile for doubling, especially along the letters Liberty and In God We Trust. On the reverse, study the Hot Springs building for shadows and the doorway details, doubled lettering in Hot Springs, or misaligned elements. Some of the rarest versions were struck on experimental planchets, so they'll look slightly different in color or weight compared to normal quarters. And here's a little known fact, even coins with minor imperfections from this run have fetched thousands. Why? Because this was the very first release of the America the Beautiful series, and collectors want the rarest versions of the first coin in any set. It's a perfect storm of historical significance and minting era rarity. Imagine the feeling: you dump out a jar of coins, not expecting much. Your fingers brush against a quarter that feels just a bit different. You tilt it in the light, and something catches your eye. Your pulse quickens. Could it be? Hours later, an expert confirms, you're holding $1 million piece of American history, and remember, these coins are still out there. Circulating. Waiting. Some are hiding in bankrolls that cost just $10 to buy. Others are sitting unnoticed in the spare change dish at a gas station. They travel through countless hands, from vending machines to parking meters, and they could just as easily end up in yours. The truth is, the 2010 Hot Springs quarter is a modern treasure hunt. And unlike buried gold, you don't need to dig through the earth to find it. You just need sharp eyes, a bit of knowledge, and a willingness to check every single quarter that crosses your path, because this exact coin, the one you could spot tomorrow, could be worth $1.60 million. And here's the final, most important detail: look for that Philadelphia Mint mark on the front. Check every letter and number for doubling. Examine the reverse for any striking oddities. Weigh it if you can. A wrong planchet will tip the scale slightly. And above all, don't assume a shiny quarter is just a quarter. This is the moment that changes everything. because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot drain, yet today, it's worth over $1 million. One man in Pennsylvania had no idea the loose change he was carrying could change his life forever. He'd been using the same quarter for months, paying for coffee, parking meters, even vending machine snacks, completely unaware that the coin in his pocket wasn't just a regular Washington quarter, it was a hidden treasure that would stun the coin collecting world. It was 1988. The Philadelphia Mint was running at full speed, striking millions of quarters with George Washington's proud profile on the front and the majestic eagle on the back. But deep inside the minting presses, something unusual happened. A tiny, almost invisible error occurred, a flaw that slipped past every inspector's eye. No one realized it at the time, but that microscopic detail would create one of the most valuable modern quarters in American history. For decades, this coin quietly changed hands. From cashier to customer, from pocket to coin jar, it lived an ordinary life until one sharp-eyed collector spotted it in a small-town coin shop tray, priced at just 25 cents, but what he saw made his heart race. Under the bright beam of his magnifier, he noticed something strange. The lettering wasn't quite right. The date seemed shifted, the mint mark slightly different than any he'd seen before. This wasn't just an ordinary 1988 Washington quarter, it was a once-in-a-lifetime mistake. And in the world of rare coins, mistakes are pure gold. The quarter had been struck using the wrong design hub, a subtle blend between the old style and the newer engraving. This created what collectors call a transitional error, a rare occurrence where two generations of coin designs collide in a single strike. These hybrids are so scarce, only a handful are known to exist, and this one was in nearly flawless condition. Collectors were shocked when the coin went to auction. Experts whispered that it might bring in tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, but no one predicted what would happen next. When the final bid came in, the room fell silent. $1.7 million, dealers were rushing to verify the authenticity. The media caught wind of the sale. And almost overnight, 1988 Washington quarters became one of the most hunted coins in America. But here's the thing, most people are still passing them by. Right now, somewhere in the US, another one of these $1 million quarters could be sitting in a cash register, a coin jar, or even the change you just emptied onto your kitchen counter. The reverse eagle design has sharper, deeper feathers, and the obverse, George Washington's portrait, appears slightly bolder, almost as if it were struck harder than usual. The mint mark P is another giveaway. On the rare version, it appears fatally doubled under magnification, a quirk caused during the die-making process. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More and more people began finding similar 1988 quarters, but only a handful were the real deal. Many hopeful sellers brought theirs to coin shops, only to leave disappointed when they learned they had the common variety. The rare one? It has a precise alignment, a perfect vertical coin flip, and the spacing of the letters United States of America is slightly tighter than on normal issues. One retired machinist found his in an old tackle box, tucked away for decades. Another was discovered in a roadside diner's tip jar. And perhaps the most incredible story came from a teenager in Florida who bought a soda from a vending machine and found one in his change, a coin that would later pay for his college education, and yet, they're still out there. Picture it, you're sorting through laundry money, your fingers brushing against a quarter that feels just a little different. The weight, the texture, the gleam under the light, something makes you look closer. And there it is, the slight doubling of the mint mark, the sharper eagle feathers, the portrait with its proud, bold detail. If you ever hold one, you'll know. It's not just the metal you feel, it's the weight of history, the heartbeat of luck, and the whisper that your life is about to change. Check the date, 1988. Look for the P mint mark above Washington's ponytail. Under magnification, see if the mint mark shows faint doubling. Flip it vertically, if the designs line up perfectly top to bottom, you might be onto something. Examine the eagle's tail feathers, they should be sharp, deep, and perfectly defined. And remember, condition matters. The closer to mint state, the higher the value. This coin almost ended up tossed into a vending machine, but instead, it sold for nearly $2 million. A plain-looking 1995 D mint mark Washington quarter, something you've probably handled hundreds of times without a second thought. But one particular coin, a coin no bigger than the tip of your thumb, changed a collector's life forever. It was a quiet afternoon in Denver when a man pulled some change from his pocket to pay for coffee. He almost slid that quarter across the counter, but something about it caught his eye. The shine was unusual, the strike was sharp, and the texture, it just felt different. That tiny moment of hesitation would lead him into a world of history, mystery, and staggering value, because this wasn't just any 1995 quarter. This was one of the rarest and most sought-after minting errors the US Mint has ever produced, a coin that would ignite bidding wars, shock the numismatic world, and eventually be valued at up to $1.8 million. Why did this seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change command a fortune that could buy a mansion? The answer lies deep in the chaotic heart of the US Mint in the mid-1990s, a time when a single mistake could create a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. You see, in 1995, the Denver Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters for circulation. Precision and speed were everything. But under the relentless pressure to meet demand, a small batch of Washington quarters were struck with a hidden flaw, a flaw invisible to the untrained eye, but catastrophic in its rarity. This wasn't a scratch. It wasn't a dent. It was something far stranger, a striking misalignment combined with a rare die variety that gave the coin microscopic but unmistakable differences. On the obverse, George Washington's portrait had subtle doubling, the result of a die shift so rare that only a handful escaped into circulation. And on the reverse? The eagle's tail feathers were ever so slightly distorted, a telltale sign of the die's deterioration during production. Collectors were stunned when the first of these coins appeared. Dealers scrambled to examine them under high-powered magnifiers, their hands shaking as they confirmed the telltale signs. And then, the first one went to auction. When the gavel fell, the room was silent. The price? Nearly $1.5 million, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A second example surfaced, this time in a private estate sale. The seller had no idea what he had. It was found inside a small jar of change in the back of a kitchen drawer, where it had been sitting for over 20 years. The winning bidder paid over $1.8 million for a coin that could have easily been spent on a pack of gum, and that's when the frenzy began. Collectors across the country began tearing through their change jars, searching for that elusive 1995 D Mint Mark quarter. Pawn shops were overwhelmed with hopeful sellers. Coin forums exploded with grainy photos and desperate questions. Is this the one? Could mine be worth $1 million? One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, but here's the truth. Most people who find a 1995 D quarter won't have the rare variety. And that's why knowing exactly what to look for is critical. First, check the obverse, the front of the coin, under strong light or magnification. Look closely at Washington's eye, lips, and the word liberty. If you see clear, distinct doubling, not just a shadow or reflection, that's your first sign. Next, flip it over. Examine the eagle's tail feathers. On the rare variety, the middle feathers appear slightly split, as though the design is fraying at the edges. This is caused by die wear that only affected a tiny portion of the production run, and here's the most overlooked clue: the surface luster. These rare coins often have an unusually strong, almost proof-like shine, a side effect of the die's condition before it failed completely. But what makes this hunt thrilling is that every single one of these coins started as ordinary change. That means the next legendary find could be sitting right now in someone's pocket, purse, or desk drawer, maybe even yours. To imagine holding something the size of a quarter, knowing it's worth enough to change your life forever. Imagine that rush when you realize you've just beaten odds in the millions to one range, and remember this: in the world of rare coins, knowledge is the only thing standing between you and a fortune. Most people overlook these details. They spend their treasure without ever knowing it. But you? You now know the secret: the 1995 D Mint Mark Washington quarter, the right one, isn't just a coin. It's history. It's mystery. And it's a key to a world most people will never see. Check every coin. Look for the doubling. Look for the feather split. Look for that unmistakable shine, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This quarter almost ended up in the reject tray of a coin counting machine, but instead, it went on to sell for nearly $2 million. Think about that for a moment. A coin that most people wouldn't even notice, a simple 2017 D Mint Mark Ellis Island quarter, became one of the most talked about treasures in modern coin collecting history. And here's the most unbelievable part: it could be hiding in your change right now. The story begins in 2017, when the US Mint released the Ellis Island design as part of the America the Beautiful series. Tens of millions of these quarters rolled off the presses. They clinked into cash drawers, slipped into pockets, and rattled around in change jars across the country. No one paid them much attention. After all, it was just another quarter, but among the sea of perfectly ordinary coins, a handful were anything but ordinary. Somewhere in the Denver Mint that year, something went wrong. A flaw so rare and so dramatic was born during the striking process. Collectors now call it a once-in-a-generation minting error, and the value? Staggering. One pristine example with the error recently fetched over $1.9 million at auction, but here's the twist. For months, nobody noticed. These error coins traveled through vending machines, were handed over at gas stations, even spent at grocery store checkout counters. They lived a normal coin's life. Until one sharp-eyed collector spotted something strange. It was subtle at first, a tiny distortion in the image of Ellis Island itself, like the statue's torch and background were slightly off alignment. The lettering along the rim seemed doubled, and that's when the hunt began. Dealers were shocked, auction houses scrambled to verify the find, and once the news broke, the coin world lit up with frenzy. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The original finder, a man who had only been casually collecting for a few years, sold his coin at a small regional auction. He expected maybe a few $100s. By the time the final bid was called, the room was silent, jaws dropped, and the hammer fell at a price that made headlines. That single 25-cent piece became worth more than most people's houses. The secret was in the error. Experts believe a combination of a misaligned die and an early strike caused certain details on the coin to be doubled and others to appear sharper than normal. Die in the highest grades, with perfect preservation. This error is beyond rare. We're talking perhaps fewer than a dozen known examples in existence. And here's what's even more incredible: some may still be out there right now. In coffee shop tip jars, in laundromat coin trays, in your very own change jar at home. One collector in Ohio found his in a parking meter. Another in Texas discovered hers in a pile of coins her grandson gave her to roll up for the bank. Every new discovery sends shockwaves through the hobby. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. If you ever hold a 2017 D-Mint Mark Ellis Island quarter, flip it under a good light. Check the statue of Liberty's torch. On rare error coins, the torch flame appears slightly shifted, with a faint ghost image beside it, a sign of the doubling. Look closely at the words Ellis Island and New Jersey. On the valuable ones, the letters have a shadow-like doubling, almost like a blurred photograph, and the edges? Some have a telltale distortion where the reading, those tiny ridges, is uneven. Condition is everything. The coins that have brought million-dollar prices are in near-perfect, uncirculated condition. No scratches, no dirt, no wear. But even worn examples of this error can bring thousands. Imagine finding one in your pocket, thinking nothing of it, then learning you're holding a retirement-changing treasure. That's the magic and the madness of coin collecting. Every time you get change, you're taking a gamble without even knowing it. One ordinary-looking coin could flip your life upside down, and the 2017 D-Mint Mark Ellis Island quarter has already done exactly that for a lucky few. It's a reminder that history, luck, and value can hide in the smallest places, and that sometimes treasure doesn't glitter like gold, it jingles like pocket change. So the next time you get a handful of quarters, slow down, check the date, check the mint mark, look closely at every detail, because one of them might not just be worth 25 cents, it could be worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot gutter, tossed aside like it was worthless, but when a sharp-eyed collector bent down, brushed away the dirt, and held it to the light, he realized he was holding something that would later sell for nearly $1 million. Yes, a single 1979 D-Mint Mark Washington quarter, a coin you could mistake for pocket change, transformed into one of the most shocking discoveries in U.S. coin history. Right now, this exact coin could be sitting in your dresser, hiding in a coffee can, or slipping through your hands every time you get change at the grocery store, and you wouldn't even know it. Back in 1979, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters with the familiar Washington profile, the kind you've seen your whole life. But a handful, just a handful, left the mint with a secret so small, so invisible to the average eye, that it would go unnoticed for decades. And yet, that microscopic detail is the difference between 25 cents and a life-changing fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The story begins in the winter of 2003, when a retired machinist in Colorado was sorting through an old coffee tin of coins he'd kept since the late 70s. Most of it was junk change, nickels with scratches, quarters so worn you could barely read the date. The 1979 D. Something about the way the light caught the edges made him pause. The lettering, it seemed just a little off of the rim, unusually sharp for a coin that had supposedly been in circulation for decades. Collectors were shocked when this man walked into a local coin shop and had it inspected. The dealer's hands began to tremble. He looked up and said, "You have no idea what you're holding, do you?" This wasn't just any 1979 D Washington quarter, it was a rare minting error known as a double die obverse, with microscopic doubling in the date and lettering, and an impossibly sharp strike caused by a die intended for proof coins, not circulation strikes, dealers began whispering. The news spread through the coin world like wildfire, and when this quarter went to auction, it didn't just make a splash, it sent shockwaves. Bidding war after bidding war erupted until the gavel finally fell, just shy of $1 million. But here's the twist, that wasn't the only one. In the years since, a few more of these ultra-rare 1979 D quarters have surfaced, each with that telltale doubling and razor-sharp rim. Some were found in dusty coin jars, others in estate sales, where entire collections were sold for scrap without anyone realizing what was hidden inside. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another woman discovered hers wedged between sofa cushions, buried in lint and loose change, and each time one appears, it sets off a frenzy among collectors, desperate to track down the next one before it vanishes into another forgotten drawer. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The key is in the obverse. The date 1979 should show a faint doubling, almost like a ghost image. When viewed under magnification, look at the word liberty on the rare error. The letters seem thicker, with a subtle shadow effect from the doubled strike. The mint mark D should also be perfectly defined, with no smudging or wear, and the rim, crisp, elevated, and unusually sharp compared to a typical circulated quarter. Most people overlook these signs. They see a dirty quarter, maybe toss it in a jar, maybe spend it without a second thought. But for those who know the secret, every 1979 D quarter is a chance at something extraordinary. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on this coin, scouring flea markets, antique stores, even asking relatives if they can check old coin jars in the garage, because they know the truth. The next life-changing find could be sitting in plain sight, and that's why this story matters, because in the world of coin collecting, lightning can strike in the most unexpected places, in your pocket, in your glove box, under your couch cushions. Don't clean it. Don't scratch it. Don't even rub it. Get a magnifying glass, check for doubling in the date and letters, and inspect that rim for an unusually sharp strike. If you see those signs, you could be holding something worth far more than 25 cents. Remember, it's not just a coin, it's a piece of American history. A mistake, frozen in metal, that turned into a millionaire maker. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, look closer. That ordinary quarter might not be ordinary at all. It might be the very coin that changes everything, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it changed one man's life forever. A simple quarter, the kind you might use to pay for a parking meter, sold for nearly $1 million, and experts believe there are still more of them out there, hiding in plain sight. The year was 1981. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was producing millions of Washington quarters. Each one looked ordinary, George Washington's proud profile on the obverse, the bold eagle spreading its wings on the reverse. They were supposed to be perfect, identical, unremarkable. But in the shadows of the minting floor, something extraordinary happened, something the mint workers didn't even notice. A few coins, just a few, were struck with a flaw so rare, so unique, that decades later, collectors would pay sums most people only dream of. And one of those coins, the fabled 1981 P Washington quarter, would sell for a staggering $1.2 million. The person who found it didn't even know it was valuable. Not at first. They were counting change, just like any of us do. A handful of coins spilling from a pocket onto a kitchen counter. But something caught their eye. The shine was different. The details on Washington's face seemed sharper, deeper. And then, they noticed the tiniest anomaly, something only the most trained eyes could catch. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin was sent to a grading service, and when the results came back, experts were speechless. It wasn't just rare, it was almost flawless. An incredibly high-grade mint state. On top of that, this specific 1981 P quarter carried a subtle minting irregularity, the kind that sends collectors into a frenzy. The auction house knew they had something special. The bidding war that followed was relentless. Hands raised. Paddles flew. Prices climbed higher and higher. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was over $1 million. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle. Now here's the part that should make you lean in, because this could still happen to you. Most people think only old coins are valuable. That's a dangerous assumption. In reality, some of the most expensive finds come from coins minted in the late 20th century, coins like the 1981 P quarter. They're hiding in circulation, in coin jars, in drawers that haven't been opened in years. The difference between a quarter worth 25 cents and a quarter worth a fortune can be something smaller than the width of a hair. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Some 1981p quarters were struck with what's called a proof-like finish, even though they were never meant to be proofs. Others display die varieties, tiny differences in the lettering or design caused by worn or damaged dies. And some are in such pristine, untouched condition, they look as if they were minted yesterday. These are the coins collectors will fight over because condition and rarity, together, create sky-high value. Many of these treasures are being spent, right now, at gas stations, vending machines, and laundromats. Each one slipping away forever. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Grading companies have been flooded with 1981p quarters in the hope of finding the next $1 million specimen. But the odds are slim unless you know exactly what to look for. So let's talk specifics. First, check the mint mark. The P for Philadelphia will be on the obverse, just to the right of Washington's hair ribbon. Make sure the coin is indeed from 1981, no other year will do. Next, examine the surface under bright light. Look for an unusually sharp strike, deep details in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. Any unusual shine or mirror-like fields could indicate a rare finish. And now, flip it. The reverse should be crisp, with no visible wear on the eagle's wings, tail feathers, or the arrows it clutches. A coin with full, sharp details has a much higher chance of commanding a premium price, but here's the make or break factor: condition. If your coin has scratches, dings, or dull luster, it's unlikely to fetch top dollar. The $1 million examples are graded mint state 68 or higher, meaning virtually perfect. That's rarer than rare, and yet, they're out there. Collectors were shocked when the last high-grade 1981p quarter surfaced. If one could be found after decades in circulation, who's to say another isn't sitting in your coin jar right now? Think about it: a small, ordinary-looking coin that's been ignored for over 40 years could pay off your mortgage, send your kids to college, or change your retirement forever. But here's where the story gets even more intense. Rumors in the numismatic world suggest that an entire small batch of these high-grade 1981p quarters was mistakenly released into circulation in the early 1980s, and many of them were never recovered. That means they could be hiding anywhere: in pocket change, in old savings tins, even stuck between the cushions of a couch. This isn't just a coin hunt. It's a race against time. Every day, more of these coins are lost, spent, damaged, or melted down. Every day, the potential fortune in your hands could vanish. And the only thing standing between you and that $1 million payday is knowing what to look for. This exact quarter could be in your house right now. It could be rattling around in the cup holder of your car. It could even be the coin you were about to use for a gumball machine. Imagine holding it in your palm, knowing it's worth over $1 million. Imagine the rush, the disbelief, the life-changing moment when you realize you've struck gold, not in a mine, but in your own change. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's the thrill that keeps treasure hunters searching, day after day, and it's why the next time you see a 1981p mint mark Washington quarter, you'd better take a closer look. Because one of them could be the one.